Great presentation, Arnaud. Now I finally realize what you mean by using it as a quality tool, because I was only looking at it from the mixing point of view, not the final quality product point of view, which a lot of us traditional bakers have been taught to do, just to look at the mixing part, right? So this technology is pretty new. And I think there have been recent studies to correlate, the starch and the gluten performance to final product quality. So if you have any more questions, please email the Chopin group. Joanna's going to put the email down below in the chat box, including the question about price. So the pricing for this instrumentation really depends on what you get and different attachments. So we'll not talk about prices today. Contact Chopin to learn more about, pricing and how to get the instrument. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box. I particularly have a comment to make on choosing the optimal flour quality. So a lot of us come to the table and say, in the US, that is, we just want the best flour, right? So the best flour. So when a baker says the best flour, it's not the highest protein, it's not the lowest ash, it's not the highest absorption. It's whatever works with their mixer, their extruder, and their processing. Okay, so every bakery is going to be different. That's why Arnaud said that I really don't know what good flour quality is for you. We just need to look at your historical data. We need to correlate the historical data with, your final product quality. So if you have the ability to do that, please collect data first. Please collect data before you approach Chopin to really tell you, what's the best quality for you. What's the most optimal flour for you? If you have been buying flour based on protein content all this while, then you're not doing it the right way. You really have to understand what is the best protein and ash that's great for your production system. And you won't know that till you run, a few months of Mixolab results, really. Okay, so there is a question on, you might include the price of the flour in determination of the profile.
Yeah, there are other ways of using the profile, where we can use the profile to look about mixing flour, and of course the price of the flour are very important. It's also something interesting to know that, in some countries you do not have easy access to wheat. I mean, sometimes when you are importing wheat, the wheat is coming, and then the millers, they have to produce flour from this wheat. And so the quality of the flour can vary. One thing I did not develop here, that if you have no choice and you have a flour which is out of the profile, but you know that from the beginning, if you know it's out because maybe amylasic activity is too high or too low, you can start thinking how to correct that. Maybe you are going to proof longer or shorter, or try to adapt something if you have no other choice, because sometimes you cannot only select the best flour, because you have to work with what is coming. But at least you have an information of what is working well and what is not working well, and you can really focus on what is important for you.
That's correct. All right. To fine tune Mixolab results, is it recommended to be used with additional equipment like SRC, Alveograph, and SDS? Or no, maybe you can elaborate what's SRC, Alveograph, and SDS.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you can fine tune Mixolab results. In fact, Mixolab is going to give you a global information, because you are mixing, and inside you have the protein acting, and you have the starch acting, and So maybe there is something wrong and you want to know one point which is out of the profile and you want to understand why. At this moment, yes, you can refer to Alveo, for instance, to better understand your gluten network, because the Alveo is going to blow this bubble and you are going to have information on gluten extensibility, tenacity, etc., etc. So you are maybe going to understand better what is wrong with the gluten. If you are doing SRC, SRC is more suited for soft wheat product like cookies, crackers. It can be used on harder type of wheat, but traditionally it's more used in this kind of industry. And here we are going to understand better what about starch damage, what about glutenin properties or quality, functionality, we said, so which is one part of the gluten. And we are going to have information of pentosan, which is related to ash, to fibers, these kind of things. So it's really allows you to understand why your Mixolab profile is outside. So yes, it complements totally.
Right. I wanted to add to that as well. It really depends on who you talk to and how big your company is. Because if I was in the R&D department, I would say yes to all those. But if I was in the QA department, I have a very set budget. I would say if you're in QA, get the Mixolab. If you're in the R&D, get all those. Right.
I agree.
Some companies are so big that you can afford two, but in two different departmental budgets, right? So it's really depends on who is asking and what are you using it for.
Yeah, totally
All
agree.
right.
And on quality and on quality control, it's very easy once you have developed your profile to communicate that to your miller.
Right.
And then your miller will have the target, and so he will deliver what is good for you. That's also the next step. And so you don't need to have extra devices because you have all you need in one device.
Yes, and I just want to make a comment on that too, Arnaud. We have been traditionally been trained on the Farinograph, and the millers and the bakers have only used the Farinograph, right? But that's because we back then in the 60s and the 70s we haven't been trained on looking at final product quality and correlating that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would advise the new bakers out there to really look into Mixolab because of this new technology, right? And to really communicate that with your miller, because right now your miller is only milling to your mixing properties. They're not looking to the step after that. Okay. So it's your job and your duty as bakers to communicate this to them. It's like, hey, perhaps let's not focus so much on MAP, which is the moisture ash protein. Let's focus on, the mixing, absorption, and the final product quality. Who knows? This might give you a cheaper flour, right? So I don't know. It could happen. All right. But it is one of those things where our traditional ways of doing things have to really change based on the technology that's in front of us. So this is something that has to be done continually with your miller. And you are in a good position to train your miller to look at these things as well, because they have no idea it's important to you. They don't know it if you don't communicate to them. So that's just my comment on that. All right, I know. Would you need to be professionally trained to operate the Mixolab?
If you can, if you are able to fill in a tank with water and able to weigh 50 grams of flour, you're able to make a Mixolab. That's as simple as that. And the beauty of that is that also, even if the test takes time, because we need, in fact, in terms of people operation is less than 15 minutes. So you are not going to spend your time on the machine. It's working itself. So very easy to handle.
I agree with that as well. I have seen it being run at the Wheat Marketing Center, and I have seen them train like interns on the Mixolab. I really do think it's a lot of on the job training and teaching the interns or the new employee what to look for. It's not difficult. So you do have to have some form of training, though. I mean, maybe like, I don't know, 6 to 8 hours of running Mixolabs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in any case, that's the company policy. When you are purchasing this kind of device, we always come and install that with you and have 1 day training with you about not only handling the machine but also maintaining the machine, common maintenance, how to make sure that you will have consistent results over time, cleaning it after each test. And that's something we have been working a lot also on the Mixolab. It's very easy to clean the mixer. For those of I've been part of the people working on Farinograph. I know how it is complicated to really clean a mixer ball. With the Mixolab, you can remove the mixer ball and clean it and dismantle it. So it's extremely easy, and that was done to facilitate the work of the operators, because that's also very important.
Absolutely. This is an unrelated question. Can you use SRC for rye flour?
There, well, that yeah. Again, short answer will be yes. That was not developed for that, but there are some papers which were published where yes, you can estimate SRC values from rye. Yes. Yeah.
All right. How about the next one? How is amylytic activity measured in Mixolab steps?
Okay. For maybe some of you know a machine which is called the amylograph, where basically you are heating a batter, so you are gelatinizing the starch, and then the amylase is degrading the starch. So you can see the viscosity going up and down. So that's exactly the same thing which is happening on the Mixolab. You've seen that at the moment, the curve is increasing because the starch is gelatinizing, but at the same time, the amylase present are degrading the starch. So if there is a lot of amylase, we are going to go not that up, a little bit lower, and we are going to collapse much more rapidly. And that's a good indicator of amylase activity.
Great.
Yeah.
And this next question is a very common question. Are all Mixolabs calibrated with each other? How
Yes. Yeah.
often do they need calibration?
Yes, of course they are. You also have to know that the Mixolab is an international standard method. It is a standard method at ISO, ICC, AACC, and many others. So that means that the quality of the result is controlled, and all the machine much speak the same language. And that's very important. Of course, when you are using that, maybe some things can move a little bit. And I would say you should make a test with a reference flour every 2 months, and we can deliver reference flours and a complete check maintenance once a year. That's all you have. So yeah, and again, so it's not a calibration, but we can send you a reference flour so you can make sure the machine is always operating properly.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Chopin, and thank you, Arnaud.
Thank you,
Really
Lynn.
appreciate it. Bye.
Bye-bye.